ICC, or the International Criminal Court, obviously recently laid out an arrest warrant for the Israeli Prime Minister and the three leaders of Hamas. And so that's been a bit of there's been a lot of backlash and response to that from a lot of groups. And so what I wanted to do is I just wanted to go over this first article, which just sort of talks about what the claims are, and, you know, who's saying what. And the second few articles are just going to go over a specific claim from the ICC about Israel that I thought was one of the more contentious ones. And then finally sort of just take a look at the other side of the aisle and what they're saying about this. So I just threw in a quick Fox News article just to, you know.
I mean, to be fair, all of these are from the West's perspective.
They are in, well, yeah. I could link some Al Jazeera, but again, like, we can take a look at Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is fine. Like, I feel like they've had the most coverage over this, as one would expect. But it's, it's not like it's unsubstantiated. There's a lot of things to cover in a short amount of time. So. Initially, I thought if we just look at this first BBC article, if you go down to the, maybe around the middle, there's a video from the ICC's.
Well, let's do like a general synopsis of it.
Yeah, well, we can go over it quickly, because I just think it's quite important just to hear what he has to say.
Yeah. So Benjamin Netanyahu responded with fury to the news that he might face an arrest warrant for war crimes and crimes against humanity. It was a moral outrage of historic proportions, he says, waging war against Hamas, genocidal terrorists, Holocaust, but a personal attack on Mr. Netanyahu by Kim Khan. That's the ICC guy, chief of the International Criminal Court. It's on the great anti-Semites of our model time. That's an accusation. Okay.
Yeah, they're not happy. Let's just say that.
And it's
just also interesting to note. Yeah, it's crazy. But it's also interesting to note that Netanyahu spoke in English during that video that was released by his office. And he does that when he wants his message to reach the foreign audience that matters to him most, which is in the United States.
Yeah, but I find it interesting, he says, so like judges in Nazi Germany who denied Jews basic rights and enabled the Holocaust. He's literally comparing him to like
just remember,
Holocaust.
to pre-Holocaust times, right?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about a literal kangaroo court. Okay. But we haven't even gotten to the announcement of the claims before we.
That's just like,
it's so weird.
Straight. I find that weird that they're starting with that though.
Yeah, because there's two responses. So the most important one is obviously from the Prime Minister of Israel, because obviously Israel is the stronger country. It has a lot more international ties. You know, this is a big claim against Israel. Not so much of a big claim against Hamas, let's say, especially at least according to the West.
At least according to the West, yeah, definitely.
So there was also a response from Hamas. Let's see here. So Hamas denounced the withdrawal of the allegations against its leaders.
Where's this?
Claiming. If you scroll down to just below halfway,
this is all Israel throwing their toys out the cart. There's a series of allegations. Three most okay. Do
me a favor, just quickly stream your Discord.
I thought I was. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it stopped it when I moved us to the broadcasting.
Rectify.
Sweet.
Technical difficulty.
So let me just look at what you're looking at. So if you see there,
no foot soldier, nor commander, nor civilian leader. No one can act with impunity. This is Khan's statement, which I think we should just watch Khan's statement.
Yeah, so we'll look at his statement, but first let's also just look at Biden's statement. So
outrageous.
US President Joe Biden said it was outrageous to apply for arrest warrants. There was no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas. So what's happening here is the West... Yeah, but first just remember, the West and Israel is trying to make this equivalence happen. But I yet to see, now we can go down to what the actual man said, but I don't see any equivocation happening here. They're both outlying separate cases, and no one's saying that they're both on equal foot. So we got to listen to what this dude has to say.
Yeah,
but first, let's just see what... I wanted to point out something interesting here, because both sides of this is not even mentioning the fact that the other side has been prosecuted either. So, like, Israel's response is just like, hey, we've just been prosecuted.
Yeah, why are you prosecuting us? We're the one that were attacked.
Well, in the same time, they're literally also prosecuting 3 Hamas leaders as well, okay, for similar, if not more egregious charges. Okay, but we're not even talking about those charges. So Hamas, obviously,
I think the outrage is probably the fact that they're mentioned within the same breath.
Within the same breath, yeah. But I feel like that is a very quick and strange, like, moral outrage. It just sounds like outrage to me.
Yeah, these atrocious terrorists and a democratically elected Israeli government. Human rights groups applaud the way that the ICC prosecutor is seeking to apply law to both sides.
Exactly.
But it's
But I think that's fair. Okay, so let's just listen to what the chairman had to say. You might have to sit through like a 30-second advert, but
I swear to God.
Of evidence
oh no, never mind.
And examined and analysed by my office, I have reasonable grounds to believe that 3 senior leaders of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Daif, and Ismail Haniyeh, bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of Israel and the State of Palestine from at least the 7th of October 2023.
Note that both Palestine and Israel.
Extermination as a crime against humanity. Murder as a crime against humanity and as a war crime. The taking of hostages as a war crime. Rape and other acts of sexual violence during captivity as crimes against humanity and as war crimes. Torture during captivity as a crime against humanity and as a war crime. Other inhumane acts during captivity as a crime against humanity. Cruel treatment during captivity as a war crime. And outrages upon personal dignity during captivity as a war crime. I can also confirm today that I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
But before we get to Israel,
just carefully note how very careful this statement was. They began this statement with Hamas, very, very carefully, and they picked their words very carefully when he started talking about the Israel charges against Israel, well, the Israeli government.
Yeah, but like a war crime for mistreatment.
Yes, so like all of the hostages, that last minute or so segment of charges were about the hostages in particular. Especially given from testimony of hostages that had been written. So those are very serious war crimes. Those are.
So is that specifically because they are hostages, and do they fall under like POW?
I don't know why or what, but there was one statement that he made that I found very interesting. It was the indignity suffered upon family members and their relationships with each other, something like that. That made me very like, what the fuck were they doing to these hostages?
Yeah.
So you must imagine the extent and the absolute treatment of these hostages under Hamas, which is the acting government of the so-called state of Palestine. Well, when I say so, I guess we can just
It's
the
it's
Palestinian
the
state.
Yeah, it's the state of Palestine, as he said.
Yeah, as he said. I think that is a very intentional, genocidal act in many ways. We don't have to talk about what even happened during October 7th. You can just look at the testimony of some of these hostages that have been released that have been under serious torture.
Yeah.
Now, to my knowledge, I don't know if I can't remember if the charges against Israel, they were very similar initial charges, killing of civilians and all that sort of stuff. But there was nothing about hostages being mistreated to such an extent.
What?
But let's just listen to what the rest he has to say.
This is terrible because we are talking legal. And
Yeah.
I'm now about to ask ChatGPT. But explain briefly what mistreatment, what war crime, how would you phrase that? Mistreatment as a war crime.
Mistreatment of hostages as a war crime.
Yeah.
Remember, listen, okay, I might not be right here. I'm just listening to the charges coming forth.
Yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with, what was happening to
Mistreatment of hostages as a war crime refers to the illegal and unethical treatment of individuals who are captured and held by an adversary during armed conflict. This mistreatment can include acts of torture, inhumane treatment, physical, psychological abuse, and using hostages as human shields.
Yep.
And bargaining chips, which is exactly what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Such actions violate international humanitarian law, including Geneva Conventions, which set standards for humane treatment of non-combatants and prisoners of war. So it's doing this again. It's doing this against civilians, doing war acts against civilians.
Civilians that cannot defend themselves.
Yeah. How does this differ?
So now, just
from POWs.
To be clear, POWs.
Oh, nice English, William. Based on the status of intended use of individuals to capture. Hostages are individuals, often civilians and non-combatants, who are captured and are held by an adversary primarily for leverage
or coercive
purposes, which is exactly what's been done.
Now, whereas POWs
are members of armed combatants who are captured by the enemy, they are entitled to specific protections under the Geneva Convention. So they're actually separate protections.
Yeah, they're very separate. Not to say that, it's more or less immoral how you treat them. It's just that there's very fundamental differences between a combatant and a civilian.
Yeah.
Or a trained combatant.
Which makes sense.
So I just want to outline back to what's happening with this, with these warrants. Every atrocity we can accuse Hamas of has been accounted for in this charge.
Yes.
So that is very, very important to take note of.
Yeah, that's everything from
this is
invasion
applied.
And
this is applied.
Civilians,
absolutely, from October 7th to afterwards.
I'll be interested to know if they will then count the
so let's just see what they charge Israel
people. Yeah, we'll check now. I'm interested to know if they would charge using their Palestinian people as human shields. That's probably more shaky
I don't
grounds.
know. I don't know about that. It could be. It could not be.
But the charge of just hostages that have been taken from Israel that are now being used as human shields.
Yeah.
And there's some evidence to show that the remaining hostages are being held very close to the top leaders of Hamas to help protect them. But that's hearsay.
That's neither here nor there, really.
Okay, sorry. Let's continue.
Let's move on to Israel.
That I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare.
So, good.
Starvation of civilians is a method of warfare. Now that was the first one that got me, because that is a very, very
that's a serious accusation.
So the other two articles I had to look at were how the aid was getting in, because the whole thing about the starvation is that not enough aid was reaching people.
Yes, and that's
they were shipping in 20.
About.
Yeah, and we know about this. If they've shipped in like 20, or the problem was they were doing airdrops because they couldn't get into all these war-struck zones, either because Hamas wasn't letting them in, or there was active combat, or because Israel, or the IDF, should I say, wasn't letting them in.
Yeah.
So there was a whole lot of things happening there. Now, whether or not these are top-down commands, issued policy or statements from people, I can't say. I can't really judge if that's the case. But the main issue here was that there just wasn't the only way they could really get aid in was 20 drops like per every few weeks of like food drop from the sky, and then that is super ineffective.
Yeah,
because these articles outline as why. And it barely reaches the people you wanted to reach. It's a drop of water. These people get to their the drops that they're waiting for. They see it in the sky. They're like, "Fuck, is it going to drop below us?" And they sit and they wait and they watch. And then they realize, "Oh fuck, it's 500 meters away." Now they got to fucking run 500 meters, and by the time they get there, there's already a crowd of people covered, like all this aid. It's a nightmare. Okay, it's an absolute nightmare. So the most effective way to get aid in here. And to keep people from actually starving, which at this point I think is definitely happening. The starvation thing is definitely happening. Now my thing is, are they charging them for this starvation of civilians because it was intentional, or because there were a lot of factors that were on the ground that were happening? So I had this. I also went to ChatGPT. And I wanted to ask specifically about. Let's see here. So I outlined that article.
Let's listen to what his other accusations are. But I think that is very fair.
That is a very fair one,
given the current state. Because there was an argument early on in the war where you could be like, oh, well, the war's hot. You can't get people to those places. The IDF is still trying to set up supply lines, whatever the fuck. But now it's at a point where it's like, come on now.
It's America has, I think that other article also outlined how they've finally. It's the article I pumped into ChatGPT. So let me just see what it outlined here. The article basically just said. For the first time, trucks carrying essential aid for the Gaza Strip crossed a newly constructed U.S. pier into the enclave on Friday. So that means that they can now at least offload at least 150 truckloads of aid daily, despite Israeli restrictions. And also, there was a very important quote that I also highlighted here.
You're talking about the trucks rolling across the
trucks rolling across. Yeah. So the main reason why it has... that a series of Hamas attacks on the main crossing, number one, on Kerem Shalom, have disrupted the flow of goods. The UN says that fighting, Israeli fire, and chaotic security conditions have also hindered delivery. So that's all on the ground, absolute chaos, okay? Imagine trying to get food through all of that. There have also been violent protests by Israelis that have disrupted aid shipments. Yeah, which is, I can imagine, is the case. There's a lot of angry Israeli people. I don't know. This is just a more detailed context of what's happening on the ground.
In general, yeah.
Yeah. Israel recently seized the Rafah border crossing in its push against Hamas around that city on the Egyptian border, raising fears about civilian safety, while also cutting off the main entry for aid from the Gaza Strip from Egypt. So that southern tip of the Gaza Strip, aid was coming in from Egypt, but the encirclement from the IDF has obviously made that very difficult. So that's also
it's not like the IDF has put in supply lines to kind of replace that at all.
I don't think. Well, I don't know if they have or they haven't. But if they have, I don't know.
We could say if they have, they are not substantial enough, and it's
in no way.
It
the
is
handling of this is atrocious.
A drop in the ocean.
So the more I look at this, the more on the ground, I'm seeing less of a case of like intentional genocide, but more of a case of just nonchalant negligence. And the I feel there's also failure to condemn a lot of the actual atrocities and war crimes that are being committed, obviously by individual soldiers. You can't obviously claim that one soldier doing something is an act of top-down genocide. But the failure to condemn things like that in a lot of instances, especially from chief brass, can be bad.
Yeah,
can be really bad. I think that's also part of this. Anyway, so that's just this claim, which I thought was super important because it's a serious claim. Like the starvation of civilians,
it's a war crime.
It's a serious war crime. It's a fucking that's crossing so many fucking lines. So let's hear the rest of his charges.
And for those who are interested, the Dal Arb Balah, I fucking butchered that one, is one of the central
Dar al Balah,
it's one of the central aid points.
Centers,
that aid then gets shipped out from.
Yeah.
Ready for distribution.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look. So we have starving civilians. Yeah. Okay.
Which I will happily take at this point.
I'll back that for sure. Yeah, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population.
Interesting.
As well as crimes against humanity, of extermination and or murder, persecution.
Remember, that could be charges of war crimes from their soldiers themselves, which is documented.
Yeah, that would be soldiers who are committing.
Soldiers who are literally just committing war crimes. Yeah, there's a lot of that happening. I mean, we've been over this.
Yeah. But those are the two. Those are just two charges.
Yeah, those are two charges. So one of starvation and the intentional. Well, there's a couple there, but the main ones are the starvation one and the intentional targeting, extermination. Yeah, and the intentional starvation of civilians by the intentional mistreatment of civilians or targeting by IDF soldiers. Yeah. I would think is the main. Now,
which is fucked.
I feel like this is a very reasonable
it's very
charge.
Measured. Yeah.
Considering how much I've looked into the whole aid situation, it is absolutely fucked. Like Biden had to put so much investment into getting that fucking that supply line going for aid, so that they could get more. Because Israel was not even bothering to lift a finger about it.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem like it, because they just seemed to be more hampering the issue than anything else. Although, let's be fair, it's Israeli protesters, not necessarily the IDF,
No.
standing in
If
front of them. And
I don't think so. Well, definitely protesters would be hindering it, but if the IDF really wanted to, they could move the protesters aside and be like, look, we need to get this
I
shit
agree.
fucking rolling.
Again,
So,
exactly. It's like negligence. It's willful negligence.
And what is said down here is so fucking
And
true. Leading
so-
I fucking hate these names.
B'Tselem.
B'Tselem
Yeah.
remarked that Israel's rapid decline into an immoral abyss. Like,
It is.
that is what has happened. Israel has
so
just
true.
lost every single moral battle since the start of them, since
Going in there.
whatever fucking
The invasion of
since
Gaza.
the invasion of Gaza. They started on top of the moral hill, and they've literally thrown
And they just literally
themselves off the
tumbled
cliff.
down.
Yeah. Like every single fucking step of the way.
But I think to myself, like, was it ever gonna go any different? Like, I can't imagine a deeper hatred these two people have for each other for this to be
what is happening.
What is happening on the ground right now. And it's quite insane.
Yeah, okay, this is just talking about human rights, being like, yeah, finally, 3 main leaders of Hamas were charged with war crimes of extermination, murder, hostage-taking, rape, and torture.
I mean, to be super fair with you,
that's including the political bureau as well. Interesting.
I think I should quickly just touch on the whole thing about Dolus Specialis. And I
why
wanted to just
genocide isn't being accused.
Yeah. Number one, because for something to be classified as genocide under international law, it must be committed within the very specific intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, okay, that's a word, racial or religious group. The specific intent is known as Dolus Specialis. And there must be clear evidence that actions taken were specifically intended to destroy the Palestinian people as a group, and this goes beyond general hostility or military objectives and requires a proof of deliberate strategy aimed at the physical or biological destruction of the group. So where I see the line being drawn here.
Some people will say that is exactly what has been happening, what Israel has been
What
doing.
is happening? What Israel is doing is the bare fucking minimum to keep themselves from
being that almost.
Being that. Let's just say. So they are not maybe quite there yet, but they are awfully close.
Yeah.
So here's a very specific
the difference if you are a Palestinian protester and you hear the word extermination, that in your mind will be in the same fucking vein as genocide.
Yeah, exactly. So here are very specific actions that need to be taken.
Legal god of ChatGPT.
Well, hold on. I just wanna quickly go over these 5 points here. So for actions taken, so there was the intent, number one. It's very important. You have to establish a strong intention, a top-down intention. Number two, which that's a very sticky point. Actions taken. Now here's where most of the claims come from.
Send me those points on Discord so that I can also show them on screen.
Yes. I see it's come out.
That's come out that's definitely a ChatGPT copy paste.
Yeah.
I know it's when I see it.
You know what I can do? Let me put this into the Google Doc. It'll be more.
Oh yeah, well, just click the copy thing at the bottom of it.
Oh, hold up. Copy. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Now it looks good. The message is too long. Fine.
Oh, well, that's just Discord being a bitch.
Okay, well, let me send it on.
No, we are
Steam?
not at all suggesting that ChatGPT is a legal juggernaut.
Expert in any sense of the word. This is
No.
just helping us determine the actual points that is
We are
specifically required.
just knuckle dragging plebs.
Okay, so this
and Steam
better.
accepts it. Love it.
Love it.
We are knuckle dragging plebs.
Like, this is our best way to do it. Okay, so
we
like,
just
we are not
want
legal experts.
the basic.
We just want to, yeah, we want to know how easy it is for, like, you know, laymen's like ourselves to actually figure this stuff out as good faith as possible.
Yeah.
That's the only attempt.
And digest it.
And digest it and see where our points are being. So dolus specialis, that's specific intent. That's number one that describes it. Intent. So this is where there's a lot of sticking points here. You can't necessarily establish like top-down orders from Israel or like specific policy or like anything like that. You might have statements from groups which were used in the ICJ case.
So clear evidence that the actions taken were specifically intended to destroy the Palestinian people. Okay.
Yeah. Number two. Now, number two is where I think a lot of the people are getting a lot of their beliefs from. Like, okay, this is where genocide is clear, because these are the most obvious, visible things. So number one, killing members of the group. Okay, obvious. Okay, they're obviously killing Palestinian people, causing serious or bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group. That's obviously happening. Deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the group's physical destruction in whole or part. Now, so that's difficult. I don't know if it's calculated. Now, bringing the inflictions or the conditions are there. The conditions are happening. But is it calculated to bring about the group's physical destruction in whole or in part? That's difficult.
That's very
now,
difficult to prove.
Here's one that I doubt is happening. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the. So that's
different. That, do you know where that is happening?
Yeah, that's happening
in China.
In China, yeah, that's happening in China.
To the Uyghur Muslims.
Okay? Like, I don't know if they're killing members of the Uyghur Muslim group. I don't know if they're causing serious bodily harm.
But we know they're having forced sterilizations of them.
But point 3 is happening, definitely. And measures to prevent births is definitely happening in China. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So, yes, I am definitely going to say 100% that children are being displaced. Okay. But this specific claim here is like very similar to what the Australians did to the Aborigines. When I say Australians, I guess the British colonials who went there, which are modern day Australians.
Please, it's the British prisoners. Not associate.
We do not associate.
Yeah.
When they came there, they deliberately, I would say, genocided the group. And how they did it is they would separate the children from their families, and they would take the children and then they would re-educate them as Catholics, and they would marry them off to like white families, and they would try and breed out the gene. That was what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and that sounds very genocide-y.
That's very ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
And genocide. But very two different things. So that's the actions taken. So this is the strong claims. Okay, I can say for doubt that number 1 and 2 is definitely happening. Number 3 is partial and difficult to prove. And when I say number 3, I mean within the points of point 2. Yeah. It's like, okay. So number 3. Now this is another sticking. Evidence of policy or order. There must be evidence showing that the actions taken against the group were part of an official policy or plan, rather than isolated incidents. So, for example, war crimes by ICJ soldiers, or actions taken without specific genocide. Actions without specific genocidal intent.
So that would then be the main difference between what was it? Execution? Or what was the thing?
Extermination.
And genocide. That would be one of the main differentiating factors.
So we had your little note and this is ChatGTP, so again, just take it for what it's worth. In the context of the Israel-Palestine conflict, proving dolus specialis would require concrete evidence that the Israeli military, or IDF, actions and policies were specifically intended to destroy the Palestinian population. And number two, clear documentation or statements from Israeli officials or military leaders indicating such intent. Now, the documentation is not there, but statements from Israeli officials or military, there are some weird and crazy statements out there.
Yeah.
However, those statements were brought to the ICJ by South Africa, and a lot of those statements were made by people that were either removed from parliament or people that are no longer in positions of power. Now, I know that there was a couple of statements that were also taken out of context, like it wasn't Ben-Gvir.
There was a lot of clip jumping by the South African.
There was some clip jumping. Yeah. So there's that. Okay, so while there are arguments and evidence suggesting severe and potentially unlawful actions by Israel against Palestinians, classifying these actions as genocide with dolus specialis is a very complicated and highly contentious issue. It requires comprehensive and very key, unbiased investigation by, and listen to this, international legal bodies such as the ICC, which have the mandate and expertise to assess these claims thoroughly. The situation in Gaza, and listen, they've taken their time, okay? The situation in Gaza, characterized by severe humanitarian crisis, high civilian casualties, and extensive destruction, certainly raises serious human rights concerns. However, proving that these actions meet the stringent, very specific criteria of dolus specialis for genocide is a significant legal challenge and remains a subject of intense international debate. And I can say for 100% of a doubt, this has helped me walk back a lot of what I said about the UN when they refused to call what was happening in Rwanda a genocide, when it was so clearly a genocide. Because how long was that while that all was going on while the genocide was happening? The 3 or 4 weeks or 2 or 3 months that it occurred in. Okay, 800,000 people. But it would have taken them so much longer to go in there and investigate all the shit that was happening. Yeah, and then come back and conclude officially, hey.
So, because the criteria for genocide are so
specific. You need to do your homework.
You have to do so much research and investigation that by the very nature of it, it will take you months to years to be able to make that final charge
ruling. Yeah, so that's why there is a preliminary ruling ICJ, because that was all about establishing South Africa's credibility, more or less, to make the claim. And we've been over this because it was a very complicated situation. But I think maybe it's important. Let's just listen again to the that lawyer lady who was talking about the ICJ. Yeah.
No, I've listened to that gentleman. I think we pretty much finished this article for the most part. Let's just
for the most part, yeah.
Destroying a lot of civilian infrastructure. Biden has issued a series of rebukes to Israel, expressing concern that it was
that is interesting
Palestinian civilians and destroying too much infrastructure in Gaza. But if a careful balancing act with a close ally, which he has always supported, Mr. Biden and his administration have not spelt out in public about what they mean. I think they just like that plausible deniability. I don't think they would want to specify anything.
I think now maybe I'm being a little too charitable to Biden, but I think that there are a lot of geopolitical things happening at that level, which is a very sticky tenure. And Biden's relationship with Netanyahu is not great right now. Those two men do not see eye to eye on this war. And so there's a lot of difficulty in towing the line that Biden has to do to keep this like strong relationship going. And there's big, major geopolitical concerns happening on the office of the president. So I think what's really happening here is there's frustration from perhaps the Biden administration. And Anthony Blinken as well echoed these statements. Is that for those who don't know, that's the Secretary of State. Sort of echoed these sentiments that I feel like they just felt like the ICC jumped the gun on this ruling.
On this arrest
on these warrants. Yeah, like they feel like it's only going to make a more of a bit of a quagmire of a situation here. It's only going to add to the issues or piling the issues up. Well, maybe the warrants are warranted. I think it's more of a timing thing for them, and maybe that's why they're sort of issuing these statements of complete condemnation in the way that they are, because it's politics, number one, and number two, it's a bit difficult to directly call out the the ICC for jumping the gun. Well, they got massive geopolitical concerns to struggle. Like, I don't think it's easy to get that message out as much as it is to say these guys. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting. Israel does not signed the ICC's Rome Statute.
Yes, that's very important.
Neither is the US, but like
that's also very important.
Yeah, but Israel's part of the ICC, right? Isn't it? Because that's how the ICC has.
Wait,
am I being an idiot? ICC.
I don't know. Are you talking? No, you're talking about the Geneva Convention.
Oh.
Unless the ICC is what is the Geneva. I'm a fucking
That's
idiot.
actually a good question.
But I want to know that. Just double check if there is a difference between them.
Israel, along with the United States, China, are not members of the ICC and does not recognize its authority.
Yeah, so I feel like that's another very interesting sticking point. I feel like for either of these countries, it doesn't mean much to them. They don't recognize these ICC international laws. So they're just like, hey, fuck it. We're just going to trash them publicly anyway. And, because kind of fuck with our geopolitical situation here.
Wait, then what are the biggest signatories of?
It's probably Great Britain and Germany and most European countries.
Probably the EU. Who are
NATO members in Europe?
Just of the ICC.
Remember, a lot of people think about this as you didn't sign on to the ICC. You must have like real things to hide under the closet or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not that simple. There's also situations where different countries literally just recognize different laws. Like even in South Africa, our legal system
France,
is
Brazil, Japan, and South Africa. Which, well, to be fair, South Africa tried to leave the ICC, so we don't need to go into that too much.
I love our moral standing on so much of this.
Oh yeah, moral grandstanding all the way.
It's kind of pathetic. I'm sure the UK is a signatory.
Yeah, UK is a signatory.
Which makes Rishi Sunak's statement a little bit interesting. Let's just see.
What did he say?
Let's say Rishi Sunak.
Rishi.
Statement.
Egypt.
Rishi Sunak slams deeply unhelpful. Now that's a very careful, I think, deliberate term. Deeply unhelpful ICC arrest warrant. So that's definitely saying, boy, you guys really threw like a spanner in our works here. And when I say that, I don't necessarily say that as in, they're trying to do something insidious here. What I mean is like, whatever they're trying to do to resolve this conflict, they see this as a obstacle to it.
Yeah, well, it's if anything, it kind of lights a
It just
fire under.
up Netanyahu's ass, which makes him all the more fucking unhinged and
Yeah.
unstable.
But then it also gives more fuel to the Palestinians in the fact
True.
that, yeah, we are getting war crimed. Yeah,
But
and
here's
we
the
know
thing.
for a fact that's just that specific sliver of the
And I,
charges is going to be
and
pumped to all hell. And then the other far more numerous charges on Hamas's side is going to be squashed.
yeah, but I feel like this is why a lot of groups aren't talking about this, because both Hamas and the IDF or Israel have condemned, like unilaterally condemned this ICC ruling for
Oh,
their
really?
own reasons, right? So if this is the case, then anyone who supports Hamas or any sort of nation that does is going to be either quiet about it, or they're going to, like, just talk about Israel being, charged, and vice versa. um because that's definitely the more,
Oh, that's
that's the more
interesting.
important charge.
Palestine is a signatory.
Yeah, so there you go, bro.
That is so interesting. So Palestine are a signatory,
Yeah,
not
so just remember, like,
and
Joe
that's how the
Biden.
ICC are coming in. Well, that is so ironic.
Yeah,
That is
that's
so ironic.
ironic, because
Yeah,
Israel don't care about this because they're not a
yeah.
signatory of this international body, but Palestine is. Now, is it Palestine or Hamas?
Sorry,
And
I
if it's
have a
if
phone
it's
call. Be right back.
all right, cool. Yeah, so reading through here, an important thing to remember is that um, America doesn't sign on to this, and the neither does Israel. So they can make whatever dismissal claim they like about it, and they can be as hot-headed about it as they like. Whereas countries like Britain, it's a different story because they're signatories. So Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of England, he has to sort of like tread a very like tight rope when he um, makes his assessments, or his reaction to this. So you'll probably see his statement to be very revealing of the true nature of what the issue might be. So, like a phrase like "very unhelpful," yeah, that sort of. I think that sort of like makes you think, okay, this is definitely the issue that's at hand, or the real problem that they're facing. That it's more of a geopolitical concern, like we discussed. Um, yeah, so I want to also finally just look at Fox News article to see to say about it, and what the claim from the more right wing, more Israel hawkish sort of groups are in America. And then, yeah, but I am not convinced in any way, at least for now, unless the Fox News article reveals some incredible insight into the corruption of the ICC or whatever it may be. Um, it's a pretty tall order for me to be convinced in any other way that these charges are not warranted. I think the ICC is a body that can be trusted with handling this delicately, and they have. I mean, you look at the statement made by the chairperson, and it was very carefully worded. They began by condemning Hamas. They charged Hamas with a lot more crimes, and all of the main focus of this has just been Israel being charged. Netanyahu, warrant for arrest. You don't hear anything about. You don't. It's not that you don't hear it, but it's not it's like the quiet part that you don't hear too often about this. That Hamas is also charged, 3 of their leaders, with every like offense you can think of, regardless of where you stand on this. That especially if you're pro-Israeli, they have been charged with every offense that you can think of that you claim that they have done. So it's only fair to say that their actions against Israel, at least, well, charges against Israel, have some.
Sorry about that. I'll just have to do some very, very smart editing.
Some smart editing. Yeah, no, it's cool. I was actually just, looking back. So I think maybe the best thing we can do now to close this off is to just quickly look at the Fox News piece. Because at this point, and I stated just now, I'm kind of like leaning towards the fact that unless this Fox News article is going to expose some fucking crazy shit about the ICC being like a super corrupt organization that is hell-bent on the destruction of the Jewish race, then...
Well, I mean, the ICJ is part of the deep state, and part of the globalists.
Yeah, true. So, fuck, dude, that is a whole other... Jesus, that's a whole other rabbit hole on another side of the spectrum.
For another video.
But at this point in time, I am quite shocked that it has come to this, especially considering the ICC's reputation.
ICC Kangaroo Court over Netanyahu's arrest bid.
This is where we go into a little bit of...
Next. What?
We're going into crazy land, and this is such a stupid claim, and you'll see why. So if you go down, so it says, okay, so the International Criminal Court, the ICC, should be defunded over its decision to pursue arrest warrants against Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu before it targets the United States, according to the ex-National Security Council official Richard Goldberg. Okay.
Oh, Richard.
Go, Richard. ICC prosecutor Karim Khan announced Monday that his office had reasonable grounds, okay, to believe... I'm reading your stream.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm just doing some side
some housekeeping. Okay. Yeah. Okay. To believe Netanyahu, Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Hamas leaders have committed war crimes. Hello, Hamas leaders committed war crimes and crimes against humanity since the onset of the Israel-Hamas war on October the 7th. President Biden condemned the outrageous application for the arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. This is not serious. This is not serious. This is not about the law. This is about what?
That's
lawfare.
Yeah.
This is about lawfare.
Yeah.
This is to use a system of law as a weapon of war. This is a kangaroo court that is supposedly a court of last resort that is not targeting a democracy in Israel that has a functioning court system.
Which is a fair criticism. The ICC is supposed to come in to situations where the courts of like the
ICJ?
No, the ICC.
No, but I mean, if other courts like the ICJ, for example, can't make a ruling.
Yeah, isn't it when the local courts are unable to make rulings and are like falling apart is when you have the others coming in? ICC coming in?
I don't know. Is that true? I don't know. Can the ICC not just go in and do independent investigations?
Do whatever the fuck it wants.
Because, so according to this lovely, wonderful 4.0, version of Djibouti explanation of what was going on, the only way for you to actually have like proper investigation into this is for comprehensive and unbiased investigation by international legal bodies such as the ICC, which have the mandate and so mandate, very careful. That means that they have the right. In other words, they have the ability and expertise to assess these claims thoroughly. So if they want to go in there and assess these, it sounds like they can. Like, there's no demand for them to be a last resort. Let's look that up. should the ICC, or is it that the ICC is a last resort, or can the ICC come in at any time, regardless whether or not it's an ongoing conflict or?
Is this another random question I'm asking?
Or is this guy just making a nonchalant claim? Because he's already said that they're going to come after the US, who is also not a signatory. So, like...
is the ICC a
last resort?
A court of last... Yeah, a last resort.
A court of last resort, yeah. So that's specifically what they claimed it to be. So.
Pretty sure that's not resort. But
yeah.
Yes, the ICC is considered a court of last resort. This means that the ICC intervenes only when national courts are unwilling and unable to prosecute individuals accused of serious international crimes, such as genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity.
So I think we can all agree that I don't think Hamas is trying to bring their leaders, well, Hamas's legal system is trying to prosecute their leaders.
Yeah.
But the real question is the democracy of Israel doing it? Yeah,
I think there's definitely a case for Israel having not already started investigations into it, for the ICC
let's check that. Let's check that. Has Israel doing
started war crimes,
investigations into war crimes? Yeah, has their independent judiciary body done
Israel
investigations?
Legal.
Oh, wait a minute.
How do you say Israel legal?
Legal branch, their independent, their judiciary. Wait a minute. Israeli Parliament.
National. Say Israel investigations. What do they call it? Israel legal.
Yeah, it's their judiciary system.
Judiciary investigations.
July 2023.
War crimes.
He has a very interesting thing that happened 3 months before October 7th in Israel. And I think you might remember this because they were talking about it. There was like a little bit of murmurings of this happening in Israel.
My wording is too bad to really get anything. Israel International.
Okay,
Court,
so I'll search for it. Has Israel's judiciary?
Here. So this is a claim. This is from Amnesty.org. So Israel authorities have so far failed to promptly, thoroughly, and independently investigate war crimes and other violations committed by Israel armies across the OPT.
Okay.
Yeah, let's have a look at your link here.
So I don't know how much this has to do with October 7th. I don't think anything to do with it, but I think it has a lot to do with the split that happened here. So initially what went on is that there was a bill that the Knesset wanted to put in that sought to curb the Supreme Court's power to void decisions made by the government. So that means that they were cutting some ties from the independent judiciary and wanted to, yeah. So essentially what happened is the courts were weakened in Israel severely. Which means...
Interesting.
Which means even if the...
middle of last year.
Yeah, literally in July. So even if the courts in Israel were trying to do something, would it even matter after this bill?
The vote was in favor of the limitations. Far-right government.
I'm pretty sure the entire Likud party voted yes.
Yeah. Anti-government protesters were forcibly dragged from the building. What's the bill called? The bill must still pass 2 more votes before it can be written into law. The new bill seeks to curb the Supreme Court's power. Critics argue that such a law invites corruption and abuses power to facilitate governance by curbing court intervention. It's not an end of democracy. It strengthens democracy, says Netanyahu. That's definitely not a biased statement. Even after the amendments, the court independence and civil rights of Israel will not be harmed in any way. The court will continue to oversee legality of government's appointments. What was it specifically curbing then? Sound of protesters rallying. Okay, well, what's let's just do this. Israel Supreme Court bill. Judicial Reformation Bill. I'm assuming this might be the one we're talking about. To overhaul the judiciary, publishes a draft. Crisis. Really. It's in favor of reform. As things stand, members who are not publicly elected officials, judge, lawyers, and a majority of the committee, and it's possible to appoint a judge whom they do not approve. Focusing exclusively on the Supreme Court, Israel's judicial selection is exceptional when contrasted with other democratic countries.
Yeah, it's
Only
so that's definitely
OECD
something that happened.
Member states besides Israel appoint their constitutional court judges without giving the elected officials the ability to appoint judges. Okay, and this is arguments in favor of reform. Wait, no, this can't be the same thing then.
What are you looking at?
So, I looked up Israel Supreme Court bill, just to like try and figure out to see what, if anything, I could catch, because there's no specificities provided here.
This only came out on the 10th of July.
Yeah.
So this is now, in hindsight, what was the actual ruling?
Yeah, according to this, if this is the same thing, which I cannot confirm whether it is, at the moment the bill's blocked.
Oh, okay. So then this is just sort of like a red herring.
Assuming that this is the same thing. Supreme Court has for decades assured the right to declare legislation unconstitutional. The reform will permit the Knesset to override such a ruling. By reintroducing the legalization and approving it with a majority of Knesset members.
Which essentially means that they can just push a bill through.
They can literally ram a bill through the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can't do anything about it.
They can do shit about it, yeah.
The reform would additionally diminish the ability of courts to conduct judicial review of the basic laws and change the makeup of the Judicial Selection Committee, which is what I was reading earlier.
Yeah.
So that control over the appointment of judges is effectively given to the government. So it pretty much takes power away from the Supreme Court, gives power to the government, and almost like moves the Supreme Court to become a subsidiary of the government, whereas it should be a independent body, as we were saying, as you said earlier.
Yeah, independent judiciary.
Yeah. Okay, so it's currently blocked,
that didn't happen.
But the fact that what's currently blocking it, actually?
The Supreme Court.
Well, if it's the Supreme Court blocking Supreme Court reform.
That sounds a little biased. I don't know about that.
Yeah. So...
I don't know. Who blocked it?
I'm assuming this is...
the court had to block it.
This is March 2023.
This is when it all started to come
July 2023. The Knesset passed the bill, but and then January 2024, the Supreme Court struck down the bill. So this is right in the sense of this was in July 2023.
Yes, yeah.
Which is when the bill was passed. And then beginning of the new year, the Supreme Court struck it down, saying, "Fuck you."
Happy New Year, fuck you.
Happy New Year. We are keeping our rights.
Enjoy your war. We're gonna keep our rights.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the original reason why I thought this was important. I was worried that had this bill gone through, then even if the ICC like had to step in because of that, or they stepped in because the judiciary literally could not be asked to prosecute any of this.
To prosecute.
Yeah. And it seems to be the case that it's the latter, that the judiciary is just dragging their feet on this issue. But they're happy to shoot down a bill that basically, that was 8-7, bro. A vote of 8-7.
That's pretty close. Like
that's close, all right.
Close.
And that makes you worry, right? How the fuck are Supreme Court judges or justices sitting there and saying, I don't give a fuck about the legal system in our country. Yeah, screw it. Let Parliament just ram shit through our judiciary. That sounds fun.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's just fucking cuck ourselves.
It worries me that 7 justices would vote for that on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I feel like those justices would be somewhat politically leaning.
So, bro, exactly. So, if that's justices on the Supreme Court, what is happening in the judiciary level? Like, clearly, Israel's judiciary is just dragging its feet.
Yeah.
So, I would say it stands to reason that the ICC would have to step in.
Yeah, I think that is fair. Even though this bill is being blocked, there is still
their power remains.
They are still like somewhat compromised.
And not only are they the bill's blocked, but didn't it say that Israel has one of the most stringent judicial systems in the world? That its justices are not selected necessarily by the ruling party or whatever, but are...
there was something about it here. The bill struck
so they have...
Supreme Court, justices ruled... something here. But anyway, we digress.
So our main reason why we went off on this tangent is because we were trying to establish whether or not the guy on that Fox News article was saying that they had 0 grounds to jump in here or jump the gun on it, when it seems like they did.
And to be fair, even and given this history of, say, we can say in the past year or two, the issues that the Supreme Court in Israel has run into and had to shoot down, there is probably reasonable assumption to assume it's somewhat compromised.
I would say,
in the sense of being unbiased.
Given how narrow the vote was to shoot it down as well.
Yeah. And then you combine that with the fact that it is, in fact, Israel at war with Hamas. And Hamas did a terrorism.
Yeah.
Like, it's understandable that the ICC are also whacking Israel on the knuckles as well as
Hamas. Yeah. And I think they're within their grounds too. They're like, listen, guys, if you guys aren't going to prosecute your soldiers and your government officials and whoever the fuck who's doing whatever, then guys,
they have jurisdiction.
Yeah, they have jurisdiction.
Because Palestine is a signatory on the ICC.
Not only that, but I don't think we have to do too much research to establish the fact that whatever Hamas's court is, whatever Sharia court they might have, is clearly not holding their leaders to account. So, it stands to reason that it's on both sides. Like, there's no equivocation going on here. I'm just.
Yeah, you're just spouting misinformation.
I'm just being a fucking racist. I don't know, an Islamophobe, bro.
Sharia is Hamas. Does Hamas
as much as it seems like we're shitting on Israel
also continue
tonight,
to enforce restrictions on the Gaza population based on the interpretation of Islam and Sharia, including a traditional system separate from. So, yeah.
Bro, I mean, I'm memeing. I'm literally memeing. I'm still correct. Like, I don't think we need to go too far to establish that Hamas is using very archaic systems. Let's just say that.
Well, here we go. Yeah. Hamas has governed in accordance with the
Palestinian
Authority's Sharia-based Palestinian Basic Law.
So the PA is at least I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think the PA is largely, this is Abbas, largely the leaders of the Western Bank area in Palestine, within those groups.
Yeah.
All those peninsulas of land.
Can I just say, I love that man wearing a fucking paintball mask.
Fucking legit. Like, that's going to definitely stop the fucking bullet from going through your head.
Oh yeah, that's
I suppose it's mainly just more for all the gas, I suppose.
Yeah, probably. Okay, we need to stop now.
Okay, so back to Fox News.
Let's finish off this very, very insightful Fox News article.
I'm already changing my mind. Okay, so where we at? Okay, Goldberg then suggested the United States could be next. Okay, so there is an active investigation by the ICC into American soldiers for alleged war crimes in Afghanistan, he said. So if we want to stand by and watch this Kangaroo Court start indictments against democracies that aren't even members of the court, we're going to be next. Okay, so at least he acknowledges they're not members. So I guess he's just more worried about the PR stunt, like, the ICC literally taking the US government to court.
Well, which would be fucking massive news when it does.
It's so stupid, dude, because the reason why he's saying it like this, and the reason why he's saying that they're jumping the gun and that they're they don't have a right to come in, they're a last resort, is because he knows that the US judiciary will immediately prosecute cases of war crimes committed by their own soldiers. It's not even contested. So the ICC would never need to step into the United States.
Yeah, I mean, some people would agree with you. Other people would say, obviously,
some people think the election was rigged. So I mean,
I mean, it's the deep state. So come on,
it's exactly deep state all the way. You lose.
And
remember, President Trump.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Co-host Steve Doocy pointed out that, Israel,
that's just talking about the funders. President Trump actually did issue an executive order to threaten sanctions against the officials at the ICC, as at the time, 4 years ago, looking at this type of action targeting either Israel or the United States, and they did back off. That is, look at Trump just coming in.
Look at Trump just coming in being a...
Trump's sanctions against the ICC.
For what?
What the fuck?
Oh my god, what a virtue signal, dude.
That is such a virtue signal.
Given what we've learned about the ICC tonight, like, it's like the ICC are probably just like laughing at that.
Sanctions on Bissona and Mochochoko implemented a sweeping executive order issued by Donald Trump. This order declared a national emergency and authorized asset freezes and family entry bans against ICC officials who were identified as being involved in certain activities.
One might call that a little bit rogue, I would say.
I think
just
that
a little bit rogue.
Little unhinged.
A little unhinged, you know.
A little. You might say a little Trumpy.
A little Trumpy, a little bit unnecessary.
Earlier, the Trump administration had repeatedly threatened action to thwart ICC investigations in Afghanistan and Palestine. This is before the war.
In a precursor step, in 2019, the Trump administration revoked prosecutors' U.S. visa.
Revoked their visa.
Bro, the fucking administration stepped in to like Home Affairs or whatever. What is it? The Department of whatever, Homeland Security, and they were like, yeah.
Sanctions program aimed at undermining the work of the ICC.
What a fucking lol, dude. This should be on Kiwi farms, honestly.
This is bizarre. Like on what grounds? Why did? I mean, it's an executive order, so give a fuck on what grounds.
Yeah, I mean, they can just be dumped by the Supreme Court. Bro.
Designation had to immediately.
And I mean, to be fair, I don't actually know to what state the American Supreme Court right now is compromised, to be very honest with you. Considering this wild bullshit.
That might belong to these two individuals, then comes within, when it comes in US jurisdiction, would be blocked.
Bro, how come we never fucking heard about this?
How did this just like slip through?
How is this not news? Like... This is insane.
This is just how much wild shit Trump did. That people just didn't...
no wonder they said he did nothing. These are just virtue signals. Like meaningless fucking...
importance of the US dollar. Okay, so it's just like some global masturbation.
Oh my fucking god,
There were sanctions individuals and their immediate family members are presumed to be subject to US visa restrictions.
My god.
Does not name persons.
Wow, this Fox News article is revealing a whole lot of crazy rabbit holes, dude. Like,
yeah, I feel like we need to stop and go back to the article because, like, we can just dive down this.
This is insane. This is like watching a fucking Tucker Carlson video, dude. Like, it's insane.
How these things, under the authority of the US presidency, on what? I want to know, like, on what grounds? Can others designate sanctions?
Well, he was talking about Afghanistan. And
yeah, it was Afghanistan and Palestine
didn't it?
Investigations.
What was the US? What US troops were doing in Palestine at the time?
We can't dive down this rabbit hole right now. I don't think we can.
No, dude, we're like 3 points removed from the original. Yeah, let's go back to the article.
As the US sanctions were before. Okay, well, Trump did a Trump. Okay, that's good to know.
So Trump did a Trump. Okay, great to know. A big old fat virtue signal.
President Biden withdrew that executive order, so now... Okay, well, I guess fuck us. We should have just kept on reading. And now we're left with no tools, Okay, because that
What do you mean
did something
tools? Threats
right
to
now
their
to
family
pressure this
member?
organization or its funders. What
Bro.
threats to its funders? Okay, wait, let's just go up 2 paragraphs. The funders are Japan, Germany,
Japan,
the United
United
Kingdom,
Kingdom,
and France are
and
the
France.
biggest
God damn.
donors.
Wow.
We need
And
to
it's
threaten
funders.
those
Our
funders.
allies. Our
It's
fucking allies.
bro, it's them globalists, okay? It's them globalists.
Bro. Talk about a
my
fucking
God.
geopolitical nightmare. And this guy could be president again, dude. Like, holy
Yeah.
fuck.
Okay, so we need to reconstitute that sanctions regime, not just targeting Karim Khan,
The
the prosecutor or other officials there, but also targeting money flow. Of what?
Okay,
To
from
the
France.
ICC.
From fucking
We need
Europe.
to target money flow to the International Criminal Court. Like,
Are we gonna start
what
sanctioning
the fuck?
Japan? Germany?
Yeah, any
UK?
money. Start sanctioning them for funding
Wow,
the International
dude.
Criminal Court. Our financial sanctions, if we impose them on the ICC itself, would
You know what's sad? Is
say to
people will
any
listen
bank,
to this and think it's based.
yeah,
Like, they would honestly
you
think
are
that this is...
you can't process a transaction for this Kangaroo Court. You can't fund and finance or allow money to flow to lawfare against fucking buzzwords, man. People love just making buzzwords.
Yeah, bro. Lawfare. I've never heard of
Against
such
the
a thing.
United States or Israel.
Lawfare.
What the fuck? This is law. No, but this is what Trump did by sanctioning those individuals. That is lawfare.
Okay.
I would.
Do you want to quickly see what our friend Benji over here, BB, has to say?
Yeah, let's give Benji the final say.
His very, very specifically English statement in his office of the president, prime minister, or whatever.
Click on this. Am I not allowed? Am I blocking Fox News? No. Okay, it doesn't work. Fox News video is not working. Okay, well, that's disappointing.
Yeah, I suppose that's right on brand.
Yeah, open link.
Okay. What is this?
No.
We got a
clip.
Fox News videos. Okay.
Video. Picture. Can I play? Okay. No. Play.
Can you press spacebar?
No,
maybe?
this is an image.
With a fucking video click on it.
It's a fucking image.
Can you believe how terrible it is that you have to go to the source code
just to check that I'm not going crazy?
Just to check that you're not going wild, yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Not as wild as this article, dude.
Yeah, no, okay. So they've Fox News's website doesn't support Google Chrome. Okay. So let's try it on.
Let's try some Edge.
On like Edge.
My God.
Sorry, Windows sounds.
Nah, it's all good.
Let's see.
This is
maybe they support Edge. Let's see.
Wouldn't that be great?
Nope. Okay. Big.
You know what?
Picture.
No.
Now I was looking for it. Okay. Well, sorry, Ben.
I was curious. Sorry, BB. We wanted to hear what you had to say, but it seems like your friends at Fox News are clearly, silencing your free speech. So.
Oh yes. Yeah,
sorry about that, bro.
It's actually the ICC that is silencing.
Yeah, it's actually the ICC right now.
Yeah.
They have hacked into your website, or the website.
And
okay, whatever.
Blocking it all.
Okay, so fuck me. So that's more or less what this guy had to say. And then Goldberg said that the US should go to its closest allies like Japan and Germany and urge them to
stop funding the ICC.
I suppose he had to urge them. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also took aim at the ICC's announcement, saying in a separate statement on Monday that the State Department rejects prosecutors' equivalence of Israel, calling it Yeah.
Well, that's that.
That's that on that.
It's always Fox News are always insightful.
Well, it's very insightful. I'll say that. Like we learned a lot
is.
about a very interesting executive order against the ICC.
Yeah.
That we never knew happened. So
true, very true.
I imagine if Trump did come into the White House again, the situation in Gaza king a lot.
I mean, do you think that Trump would be a vehement Israel supporter?
Oh, God, 100%.
You're cutting out a little bit.
Well, yeah, okay, I think so. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I know he's very America first at the moment, but I think when it comes to Israel, it's I think he'd be a lot more in lockstep with whatever Netanyahu wants to do. I mean, he's a fucking punching ball. Where whoever he speaks to on the international stage, whether it's Putin, whether it's Netanyahu, whether it's Kim Jong-un, they've all managed to use him for their their gain.
Yeah.
Whatever they want, they've all laughed at his jokes and tolerated his presence, but secretly think he's a fucking moron that they can manipulate with ease. It's a bit of a shit show. So I'm not so to sum it all up. I don't think the ICC is a kangaroo court. I'm gonna make that
bold
prediction.
claim, very bold.
Very bold claim. I do not believe there is sufficient evidence to back up the claim that they are a quote unquote kangaroo court. But we'll I guess we'll get to see in the coming weeks how this all plays out.
I mean,
what the ICC attempts to do.
Yeah, if anything, it just does lead credence to when Hamas and Israel start peace negotiations. The ICC will definitely be cited from both sides. So
I believe so.
And whatever weight to either side's argument it gives is obviously up for those in the room doing those negotiations.
Exactly.
But
I think one quick clarification we have to make is that when we talk about Palestine, which signed the whatever, what Palestine? Are we talking about Hamas-controlled Palestine? PLO-controlled Palestine? PA-controlled Palestine? Which one of these?
It's a very good question. Let's have a look, shall we?
There's a lot of groups involved.
Yeah. So, if we... Hold on. Where is this ChatGPT piece?
Yeah.
Here, war crimes. So, Palestine... States and parties. So, Palestine. State of Palestine. Related document. The government of the State of Palestine accepted by means of declaration of article. This is very yeah, it's probably just the current borders. So that includes both Gaza and the West Bank.
Yeah.
It's just the currently internationally recognized borders, probably.
Which aren't necessarily that recognized, but yeah.
But I guess
I don't know.
By the ICC they are.
By the ICC, I think that. Which is fair. I imagine they're probably the same borders that we recognize. I think everyone can fairly say that. Except for maybe Israel. Because if you ask Israel, I believe that entire map would just look one color.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, let's be honest. Like,
leanings.
Such a hard one. This is why it's such a difficult one for me.
It is very difficult. It's
we didn't talk about historical context or anything because in this situation, it's what's happening on the ground. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has a lot more to do with just facts on the ground, conditions happening in the Gaza Strip, and and just basically the fact that the judiciaries of both of these governing bodies seemingly are not able to, or are unwilling to, prosecute these war crimes. So someone had to step in and do it, and the ICC has the mandate. And I don't see. I think this is fine.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
the real question is it's just charges. They still have to fucking go ahead and do a whole trial. But well, maybe I don't know. I don't know how it works there. But they issued an arrest warrant, which means that if Netanyahu lands anywhere that is a signatory of the ICC, then yeah, they have to arrest him. And just remember, this is the same ICC that issued an arrest warrant against Vladimir Putin.
Yep.
So
that arrest warrant is still out.
It's still out, and I believe it's 100% fair game.
Yeah, 100%. No,
the situation on the ground in Ukraine is a little bit different, but I would definitely say that the large-scale war crimes happening there are just as bad, just not necessarily on as population dense. I don't think it's a very small square, like, miles of space, the Gaza Strip, and there's like almost 2 million people there. So
yeah,
it's a very big difference in what could happen, obviously. But I think it's fair to say that Israel's definitely negligent, whether that's willful negligence or whether it's just simply spurred on by a lot of on-the-ground visceral hatred by IDF troops or ideological beliefs here or there. It's hard to say. But it's clear to me that there is no real attempt for a judicial system to come in to actually prosecute, at least on the ground.
I mean, Israel have fucked up.
They've
pretty
properly
badly.
fucked up. Yeah, 100% they fucked up.
And it is right that they are held accountable for.
100%, they need to be held
what is
accountable.
going
Benjamin Netanyahu needs to be held account, and
Yep.
Yoav Gallant also as well. And I've always said this from the very start. I've never been a fucking Netanyahu fan. I've always thought that he was a war hawk and an absolute right-wing lunatic that was only, fueling the fire of this bullshit. My only contention has always ever been the whole running around, everyone just saying genocide, genocide, genocide. I understand it, but it's not motivated by logic or reason.
Well, I think it's fueled by the South African delegation taking that accusation.
For sure. And let's be fair, I don't fucking
to the International Criminal Court, and we do not need to dive down this rabbit hole.
We haven't. I mean, we haven't really.
I know we've dived down this rabbit hole before, but maybe we do one day. But
one day, quick recap
for anyone who is watching and who has gotten this far. God knows why you've gotten this far, but the South African delegation is, to our belief, heavily compromised in why they have actually taken it to the International Criminal Court.
We just believe they're super politically motivated.
It's super politically motivated, probably influenced by international, friends. That pushed the South African delegation to do what they did. And I think the evidence of that is that one of the key things is that it was so rushed by the South African delegation.
Well, they took a shotgun approach to the evidence.
Full-on shotgun approach.
They just sort of fired everything and just saw what stuck. That was sort of how it worked.
Yeah,
Um,
and
which
given
is fine.
and not to
It's
shit on our country too much, but given the corrupt nature of our government and how everything else is run within the country,
yeah.
it's seemingly not too far of a reach to attribute that to kind of what has happened here. It might not be like direct briberies of the individuals at the court, but it would be money or something was put in the right place that then started a ball rolling and has resulted in this.
And whether it was Russia or China or whoever it was that involved.
We will never know.
Like,
or someone in the Middle East. Some people in the Middle East.
Here's another little bit of context that international people won't know about South Africa is that we don't apply our moral principles consistently. We stated when it came to the war in Russia and Ukraine, we neither condemned them nor whatever. We just said that we don't have any right or reason to get ourselves involved in concerns or in like conflicts that don't directly involve us. And so we're just going to keep quiet about that. We won't sign a UN charter that declares us as an unjust war.
And we're not going to pick a side.
We're not going to pick a side. But on this, we definitely see the hard against the Israeli side. So it's clearly more of a geopolitical game than anything. But that's a whole other rabbit.
That's a whole rabbit hole about anti-connections to Russia and whatever the fuck. But we do need to go down there, and that one person who has watched this far is definitely not watching anymore.
No, exactly. So I think we can...
since we've chased everyone away, should we talk about the comment from the previous video?
Yes, yeah. So it's always nice to have feedback.
Let me pull this up.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
So yeah, we got a feedback on our previous video talking about the Sam Harris podcast
and his opinions on the thing.
Now,
to be fair, the comment was mainly directed towards Sam Harris. I think what he is answering, he's answering three specific claims there. So the first one was about. Let me check this quickly. I don't know. You have it up. Okay, so the first one is
look on my screen.
Okay, so a few things to refute Harris. Per Norman Finkelstein, under 300 years of Islamic Jerusalem, Jews lived in peace side by side with Muslims. It wasn't Islam that started the problem. It was Palestinians being driven out of their land. So yeah, okay. I'm not a big fan of Norman Finkelstein. I don't think he's intentionally. Look, I think he's definitely got credentials, but I don't. A very unbiased actor, but it's not necessarily him that we're looking at. It's a claim. So, was there peace for the last since 1300 years?
I think the idea that the last 1300 years have been peaceful flies in the face of the fact that we currently live in the most peaceful time in all human history.
Yeah.
So just by the nature of that, then we know we live in the most peaceful time. Even though there are wars currently going on, we live in the most peaceful time. So there definitely would have been prosecution. As to the degree of prosecution and violence, specifically between say Jews and Muslims within Jerusalem and the surrounding area, that not 100% sure, to be fair, but I mean, this was all under more recent history. This would have been under. Actually, we can just look this up. Why not? So let's go extreme back 1,300 years. So that would. I think
it's safe to say that this is a little bit like I don't know, like a charge statement to say that there was peace up until like this this whole situation
the
with
Roman Empire. When did oh no, that was 400. Never mind.
yeah, that was 476.
No, wait. Then that would have been the Eastern Roman Empire would have operated during this time.
Yeah, around about there. The I suppose you might have called it the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the First Persian Empire.
Yeah,
but that's long ago.
That Persian Empire then matured, or not matured, but formed into the Ottoman Empire.
Okay, I think maybe let's cut this down because a lot of people
there are so many rabbit holes that we can dive down right now.
So essentially, like, I think it's a little bit naive to say
I think it's just a little bit reductionist.
1300 years.
I think it's reductionist. But then the final claim saying that it wasn't Islam that was the problem. It was Palestine being driven out, Palestinian people being driven out.
So are we talking about 46 now?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Or 48?
That's definitely a issue, but that came from the dissolving of the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And then the later.
And I think it was there was that mandate that was handed over from Britain, so Britain was like, okay, well, rather than establishing a colony here and trying to run a government here, we're just gonna let the people there do it as they please, run their own government, not get too involved. It is kind of belongs to the British Empire now because they won the war, so they took the territory. And then after that, I think they were just like, yeah, well, we've got this land here that is basically the old land of Israel or whatever. So y'all can just go move in there, and we'll just give you the mandate. I think good intentions, but a bit of a fuck up. Yes, there was definitely.
I think we can say that the issue lands at the.
But I think it's
the British
very.
Empire and the French.
I think it's. Yeah, I think it's very reductionist to say again that there was just peace for 1300 years. There was periods of war, there are periods of peace throughout that time's history. And like number two, I think again it's a little bit unfair to say that the reason why there's so much hatred against Jews and Muslims is mainly because of this issue. I think it's gone on for a very long time. Way before that. So remember, I mean, the Iranians were quite happy to help good old Adolf Hitler out with what he was doing. So there was definitely a lot of hatred before then too. And if the Israeli stories are to be believed, there was a ancient kingdom and city there that they were pushed out of as well. So I don't think it was just.
That's the thing is the claims go back and forth of like think of what's this, the Temple Mount if I remember correctly.
Yeah, essentially
where,
peace in the area.
We have claim of this old, and the other side will be, we have claim that's way older than that, and they go back and forth and back and forth.
Now,
it's what has happened, and then being pushed out is definitely not great, and you can understand why they would be from their perspective. It's really bad, and they would want to fight against that. But then again, time moves forward, not backwards.
Exactly. So
there have been a number of wars that have been fought over this already, and the outcome of those wars were not in favor of the Palestinian people and the surrounding Islamic countries.
Yeah, no, I think it's a little bit naive. Yeah, no, I honestly think
to be very reductionist, even in my own answer. So,
I just think it's a bit naive to suggest that there was just peace between them living side by side happily.
Yeah, which is a talking point that I've heard quite often.
Yeah, so when I hear it coming from Norman Finkelstein, I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur said that Mossad was asked to what the solution to peace is, and Mossad said end the occupation. Okay, I don't know. Did Sam say something to the contrary? I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's definitely something Sam said.
It's a
I don't
rabbit
know.
hole we can dive down.
And then finally, Hamas didn't create the conflict created. So that's some random idea. Okay.
Which, to be fair, yep,
You
probably.
could say that. Yeah, you could say
people
that.
in adverse situations will radicalize, and as a result, you have Hamas that has increasingly radicalized over time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you
very
can probably say the Hamas,
fundamental Hamas. Yeah.
Yeah, but sure, the conflict created Hamas. Then again, that are you then laying the responsibility of what Hamas is doing at the feet of Israel? So you're blaming Israel for Hamas doing a terrorism? I think responsibility has to fall somewhere.
True.
But
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say that the state of the situation, definitely poor conditions, that obviously leads to a lot of extremism one way or the other, and clearly they have an enemy to hate and someone who they see as their oppressor. Like, it's very statement to say.
And taking the high road is not easy in any stretch of the imagination. So let's say if Israel were to, just look
which they have not taken the high road,
starvation of the population. If
there's no high road here.
They've literally Israel's hands are definitely not clean.
They're not.
As much as
that's
they like to say they are.
Yeah. It's fuel to the fire, though. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Anyhow, hoping for peace for both countries and a two-state solution where both countries love each other. Well, I don't think they'll ever love each other, but all we can hope is for that. But
we can hope for them to love each other.
We can definitely hope for them to love each other.
But peace is the first step. A ceasefire is the first step.
If the Germans can be reintegrated into European culture after 2 fucking world wars, where they try to conquer the shit out of everyone, I think
it's doable. It's
doable.
But I'll say that you do need a strong leader that isn't hawkish.
Yes,
and doesn't keep on driving you down this route.
You need someone like a fucking MLK or a Mandela to step out of the ashes and just But I don't see that happening in this situation. The wounds cut way too fucking deep, and to be fair with you, I think we've gone beyond that now.
I mean, it's like if you were to not to dive down too much of a rabbit hole, but if you just step back to 1994. When South Africa went through the abolishment of apartheid, even though Mandela was heavily championing, peaceful protests and the like, there was still violence going on.
Yeah, there was definitely violence.
And the ANC, being a revolutionary political party, were still planning violence. Even up until the elections, they were still imparting violence. But
it was happening.
The major message, the major message of the ANC, which was out of Mandela, was peace above all else and peaceful resolution of a regime that was ancient.
And it saved our country. It saved our country for how long ever it did. Maybe another 30, 40 years, we might have our own issues, but
so
it gave us time.
If you to apply that to what is happening in Palestine with Hamas, the primary voice of Hamas isn't a voice of peace.
No, it's not.
It's a voice of
fighting. It's a voice of aggression and war. And you're not hearing a voice of peace from Israel either.
Israel either.
Well...
I think Israel not talking about peace at all either.
They ain't talking about peace.
So both parties just don't want a peace at the moment.
Because all they're looking for is a sense of justice at the end of the day from each other. Yeah. That's what they don't want peace. They want justice.
Both sides feel wronged.
Both sides want. Yeah, they feel severely wronged by each other, and they are going ham. Yeah. And yes, it's only fair to say that eventually international bodies have to step in and say, guys, you guys are fucking up hardcore, and we are literally issuing a warrant for your arrest because this has gone too far.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that is that on that.